Welcome to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman, and you're listening to us on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. Welcome to Faith and Family Wednesday. We theme out all of our shows. Monday is business and culture. Tuesday is government and politics, although I have to admit we get into government and politics a little bit extra, even on other days, as we will be doing today, as we continue to cover this Did Mayor Yemi Know story. And we have a special guest on in the next segment regarding that. I'll tell you about that shortly. Wednesdays, Faith and Family. Thursdays, Media and Education, or Education and Media. Because we want to cover everything in town. That's what the Peak is about. We're hyper-local news talk for the Pikes Peak region. Local stories told by local citizens, supported by local businesses. And while I'm saying supported by local businesses, a shout out to all of our sponsors, and especially Springs Dentist and Dr. Craig Summer, our platinum sponsor, Holistic Dentistry in Colorado Springs. They're our family dentist, and check them out, especially if you're into natural health. Holistic dentistry is a very, very cool thing, and Craig's a great guy and a friend of mine. As well as, pretty much all of our sponsors are friends, because we're here in the local community. We don't have some big benefactor. We don't have some big corporate control. And that's really proving to be a great thing, because weirdly enough on this story, if you've been tracking with us on this Mayor Yemi story, where he was accused about coming up almost tomorrow will be 2 weeks by the Daily Wire of not just knowing about this hate crime hoax that happened during his mayoral election campaign back at the beginning of 2023, but that when the FBI came to talk to him about it, that he lied to them, and that they didn't press charges. Why? Well, the race card in the protection area, that they decided that they couldn't prosecute the first black mayor, or more accurately, the first elected black mayor of Colorado Springs, and so they backed off. So the Daily Wire broke this story, and amazingly, most of the news organizations in town, you may not have heard of it if you haven't been listening to this show, most of the news organizations in town have not even mentioned it as a news item. Don't know if they're investigating it, haven't heard anything. A couple of the stations have. But we here at the Peak, we say the quiet stuff out loud. And we look at a story like that and go, my goodness, if it's going to break on a national level, it certainly needs to be something here. And, the media isn't, you may have thought the media is just about, bad news. We say dirty laundry, like we have the music in the next segment for the headline segment. It's not. We're supposed to be the watchmen. We're supposed to be the eyes and the ears, and bringing the information to you, not to tell you how to think, not to make decisions for you, but to put the information in front of you so that you, yes, you, can decide for yourself. So guess what? If Mayor Yemi is innocent of this, he should be cleared of it, and very quickly. It should not hang as it has for 10 days with hardly a statement from him and no really more information other than those of us who are trying to postulate what could have possibly happened. We need to get this out of the news cycle as quickly as possible by putting it up or down, or if he's guilty, that there is the appropriate level of accountability be held, especially for an elected official, but really for everybody. So that's what we're seeking to do here. And we have, I'll tell you, coming up in the next segment, Wayne Williams is going to be here. Why? Well, he was the mayoral candidate that Mayor Yemi was running against in the whole election and in the runoff election. And this hate crime hoax was perpetrated to benefit Yemi and against Wayne. And so we invited him on. He was gracious enough to come on. He will be here in the next segment. But as our guest, and because it is Faith and Family, not politics, or legal Wednesday, we have for Faith and Family Wednesday, Sean Mulholland, founder of Worship Mob, now Jesus Co., a worship ministry in Colorado Springs that seeks to locally and globally unite worshipers from many different churches and denominations to worship Jesus together. Sean Mulholland, welcome to the Peak.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here, and we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of things, including worship and Worship Mob, and maybe you've taken part in it, maybe you've seen it, maybe you've done it. Well, we're getting the from the founder today, and so it's an interesting day for that. So what is worship to you? What does it mean? Is it a style of music as opposed to praise, right? We wouldn't want to mix those up. Or, or is it really something that you get into much deeper? Is it a way of life? Is it a way where we're meditating on God in everything that we do? Well, that's personal for you, but when we get together corporately, how do we do worship? That's what Worship Mob and Jesus Co. is focused on. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to The Peak on The Answer. We say the quiet stuff out loud when we come back with Wayne Williams. Will you bring Wayne in?
Great.
Yeah, I think, let's switch you out.
You want me over here?
Yeah, or even slide back because you'll be
Okay.
out of shot. And let me
Okay.
bring in Wayne.
Traveling by canoe, Father Martin sent the unknown Mississippi down to the Arkansas River. The following year, he set out to found a mission among the Illinois Indians. Caught by the winter on this day, December 4th, 1674, Father Marquette and two companions executed a rough
Hey, Wayne, we'll put you here.
Okay.
Let's see. This is. Do you guys know each other?
No.
This is
Hi,
Sean
Wayne.
Mulholland from
Sean,
Worship Mob.
nice to
Wayne
see you.
Williams. Put you, Wayne, in the hot seat there. And
Put your headphones.
yes,
Here you go.
please.
Okay.
And I will quickly tell you what I'm. Do you feel the need to officially read that statement, or you just give it from
Well,
your...
if I'd not left my phone
Okay.
in the car,
Give
I
you
would.
mine. Okay, let me tell you, because we're back in just a few minutes. Okay, this is what I have. First, I'll read your bio, so people really know how long you've been a public servant doing this stuff, so you know you've been in and out of campaigns and everything. So I want to ask, how did you experience this hate crime event?
All right. So
Like,
you
what did it mean for you when it happened? What were you thinking? What, accusations were made against you or whatever? Secondly, how do you feel about Yemi calling himself the victim of this hoax, when I'll say it would seem, now that we're getting this out, that you were actually the victim of the hoax? Is that a fair enough question, or do you want me to? I'm willing in the next minute or two to alter the things up if you're more.
I mean, I'm not. I'm more willing to talk about what I am as opposed to what
Okay.
he's a. Because I understand there have been some
Okay.
threats made by allies of some of the three crazy people.
Okay. Okay. So I'll couch it in what I'm saying, that
And I'll respond.
Yemi has, but I would think you were,
Yeah.
and so and that you were seeking to be married. I mean, can I ask? I mean, it's sort of weird because you didn't get yourself in this situation, but if you were you've been in political, not good PR
Yeah.
situations. If this accusation was made against you, I know this is hard because it's one, if you did it, if you didn't do it, whatever, but it's more in that realm of how is this being handled and how might you handle it different, as opposed to you telling Yemi what to do, since you were going to be mayor. What's a good thing to do in situations like this?
And I want to talk a little bit about how.
And by the way, we are live streaming even though we're in a break.
Okay.
So we are actually on camera right now. I didn't tell you that when you came in.
Yeah, you should tell me these things. No, there are often attorneys often tell people don't say anything, right? And that's legal advice. You have to balance that out when you're in public office, because the strict adherence to that would mean you weren't being transparent with your constituents, with the people who elected you.
Which is something he promised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think many of us do.
Yeah.
And so that balance has to be there. And the challenge when you're kind of new to the process is you're not used to having to actually respond and tell your attorney, well, I understand that's the legal advice, but I have this other obligation I have to address.
Okay. And if we have time, I'm going to ask you about what you think the media is doing with this and the lack of media. Welcome back to the Peak News. Am I on? I'm not hearing myself. There we go. Welcome back to the Peak News. You know, we're citizen journalists here, so I actually have an intern, my son Zach, today on the board. So he's learning over there. So thanks for bringing my mic up, Zach. Welcome back to the Peak. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer. And if you listen to us in the live broadcast, we can't put it out on the Facebook. We can't do it in the podcast. But I like to do pop music here, and we have this Dirty Laundry song, Don Henley, and I do that mostly because that's what the media is all about. You know, is it sensational? Is it bad? You know, how do we get the viewers? How do we make it as bad as possible? And so we sort of mock that, trying to be real journalism here. But we actually do have what is dirty laundry in our neighborhood, in our region, because our Mayor Yemi Mobolade, has been accused of quite a serious crime by an article, multiple articles now, in the Daily Wire, the national publication, that not only did he know about this hate crime that is now being called a hoax, there are federal charges against the alleged perpetrators, that he not only knew about it, but when the feds came to interview him, he lied to them. And then there's more to it, and we would encourage you to look into this, but you can't find a lot of it because the media in town aren't covering it so much. But we have a website on the Peak website, thepeak.news. You can just go from our homepage or thepeak.news/hate crime hoax, and we're aggregating as much content, including our content and the content of others, because what the media is supposed to do isn't supposed to necessarily solve the crime. We're supposed to gather as much information, put it in front of you in context, and let you make up your mind. And so part of this story, and it's a complex story, there's a lot to it, we're just scratching the surface, it's sort of a gift to us that we get to cover it while the rest of the media is sort of ignoring it, is that Wayne Williams was actually, you know, Mayor Yemi is saying he was the victim of this hate crime, but actually that it's a hoax. It was done supposedly for his benefit. The real victim of it, to me, seems to be Wayne Williams, who was his opponent in the runoff election when this happened. And so thankfully, you know, I know Wayne, and we spoke yesterday, and I invited him on the program today, and he's here in this segment to answer some questions from his perspective. So Wayne Williams, thanks for being on the Peak News.
Hi, thanks for inviting me on today.
It's great to have you here. And if you don't know all about Wayne, well, just very quickly, small business owner, he's a lawyer, has law offices here. He was an El Paso County Commissioner from 2003 to 11, an El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder from 2011 to 15, Colorado State Secretary of State 2015 to 19, on the Colorado Springs City Council from 2019 to 23, and then in 23 he ran for mayor in a field of 12 in the runoff against Yemi Mobolade. So he has some experience, some information, and some personal opinion about this. So Wayne, let's start off. When this happened, when this event happened, that as we're hearing now, these individuals, somebody did this, took a cross, put it in front of a yard sign of Yemi's with the N-word on it, sent it to the press, and you were questioned in it, certainly probably implicated in it. What was your experience when this happened back in 23?
You know, Chaim, that mayor's race was very frustrating because there were a number of false accusations leveled. Everything from filming a fire truck from a public sidewalk, which got front page coverage and got interviewed by the media because we used a camera to film a publicly owned fire truck from a public site. This issue, where, according to the indictment, 3 individuals, including a murderer, set up a fake hate crime and tried to blame me and my supporters for that. Those were hurtful. All of the false accusations are. And, you know, I've been in politics long enough. I was a volunteer for a couple dozen years before I ever ran for anything. And I'm used to false accusations being made, but the series of them in the mayor's campaign were hurtful, and they of course diverted us and diverted voters from actually looking at the differences in the candidates.
So, you know, Yemi has said, even though it's come out as a hoax, that he's, when asked about this, because everybody wants to know, you know, Did you do it? Did you lie to the bed? You know, there's been really nothing forthcoming, just public statements that almost don't say anything. And he still purports that he's a victim of this, but in fact, since it was a hoax and it was done to his benefit, really the victim was you and your donors and your supporters. So, but I know you don't play the victim, but speak to that, please.
Well, I think anytime that someone is bringing false accusations in order to try to defeat somebody for public office, I think the people of that jurisdiction are victims of it because they get diverted from the actual differences. in
Election
issues.
interference, basically.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And certainly, as someone who worked very hard in that campaign, you know, put up a lot of signs myself and knocked on doors, visited with people, it diverts the attention from what the attention should be on. And so it's not just, do people believe the accusation? It's just, that's the news they're getting about you, not the positive things that you've done or accomplished. And there were a lot of efforts by folks to do things like that during the campaign, and that makes it hard to get the positive message out.
So you're a lawyer.
I am.
So you advise clients that may be in such a situation. You also were seeking to be mayor. We really haven't heard much from Yemi in almost 2 weeks, and no press conference, nothing like that. What do you make of this, and sort of, I don't want to say how would you have handled it because you didn't get yourself in this situation, but you know, sort of putting yourself in that situation, how do you think it's being handled? What would your advice be?
So I think one of the challenges you have when you're dealing with lawyers is lawyers are mostly focused on the case, and that's what I do as an attorney for my clients. And so the usual advice you give them is don't make any comments, don't talk about the litigation, you don't want any statement you make coming back to bite you somewhere else. And so that's the advice you give, but there's a difference when you're in public office. And so balancing that out, balancing that lawyer's advice that says don't say anything with at the same time your responsibility as a public servant. So one of the things that I was involved in as Secretary of State, for example, is responding to the conspiracy to defraud President Trump of his victory in 2016. There were electors who tried to defraud the people of Colorado and others, and we ultimately pushed for criminal prosecution. Ultimately, the elector was removed. The AG decided not to prosecute. And we ultimately, the decision to remove that elector was upheld by a unanimous Supreme Court. But the lawyers, of course, throughout this are saying you shouldn't be making comments under the ground. I have to make comments. This is part of my job as Secretary of State. But
it wasn't a personal thing about yourself.
No,
that is different.
Well, when people are saying recall Williams, you know, as you make the removal, there's a little bit of and I, of course, am the named defendant, I'll be in my official capacity. But yes, there were certainly accusations made. And so that balance of recognizing your lawyers giving you this advice to protect the lawsuit or the integrity, but as a public official, there's still some obligation to balance that out with the transparency. And so one of the things I've asked, you know, if indeed the accusations are false, and I will note that they are simply accusations at this point, because it is, first, it's not, the source is not named.
Right.
And so if it's not true, then simply responding by saying, you know, this is not true, I was truthful with the FBI, is a way of addressing it without getting into the details of what was actually said in the conversations that might be relevant to the litigation. But I can't imagine a scenario as an attorney in which it would compromise the litigation or the prosecution to say, I told the truth.
Okay, and from what we've heard, Mayor Yemi's statement is that he fully cooperated, but he didn't say whether or not he lied or not. You've been listening to Wayne Williams, who ran against Mayor Yemi during this hate crime hoax. Thank you so much, Wayne Williams, for being on The Peak.
Thanks, Hi.
When we come back, we're going to continue with Faith and Family Wednesday with the founder of Worship Mob, now Jesus Co., Sean Mulholland. Stick around. I'm the Watchman. You're listening to The Peak. Thank you. You speak in really good sound bites. You come in, you land the plane, we fit it in, it was good.
I try.
Okay.
As a lawyer, I sometimes am expansive. And so Lynn Bartles, who is my communications director at Secretary of State, was trying to drill into me. They are not going to, the evening news is not going to have a 5-minute explanation, Wade. You're going to have
And if you want what you say to make sure it gets in, keep it in, or else we have too much to work with.
I try. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, blessings.
Thanks for your work.
Yes, thank you for what you've done, and I pray that things go well for the next season. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Prayers are always appreciated.
Yeah.
And Merry Christmas to everyone. I think I
Yes.
can safely say that here.
Yeah.
Are you the son intern?
Yes, that's my son Zach. He's been here for about 6 months, working with us, and he's helped with the voter guide too. That's my family put the guide out.
So, are you doing that for the city elections coming
Yeah,
up?
that'll be that's where we started. So we're coming around 4 years back to the beginning. So every candidate in El Paso County has been through the guide, whether they wanted to or not, whether they answered the question.
Declined to respond.
I know it's a waste, but so okay.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, Wayne. Appreciate your time.
Blessings.
For some reason, the live stream quality is bad so far on this one. I don't.
Okay, well, we got the camera rolling,
Yeah.
so okay. Come back. You can come back to the corner here.
Okay. In the corner, you got your headphones and your mic. Perfect.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
Is this, you gonna want some
It was
more
me.
water? Or
I'm good.
I'll have Zach bring it in. Hey, Zach.
Okay.
Zach, Sean's stuff, did you fill it? Bring it in, break. Okay, so, this is the monologue.
Yep.
Okay. So just, when I give you the time cues, if you give me a little, nod or
Okay.
blink or something, so I know you got it.
I'm
And,
definitely watching you.
Yeah, and just keep the energy up.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we're back in 30 seconds. No, a minute. We're back in a minute.
Okay.
So any final prep there?
Craig is my dentist as well. He took all my amalgams out. Craig Sommer.
Oh, yeah, mine too.
Yeah,
Okay,
and he
so you know-
supports our ministry actually.
Okay.
So.
Okay, wait, there are major benefactors. But a year
It's
before I
generous,
launched
yeah.
this, they said when you're ready to go, we're in.
Nice. Yeah, he took all my mercury amalgams out, so that was like 10 years ago.
Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. Welcome to Faith and Family Wednesday. We went off a little bit on our headline segment. We normally have our guest comment on different headlines, but we seem to be doing this. This story is so big locally. Again, surprised that the rest of the media aren't all over it, but we are. And so we're doing, tomorrow's show is actually going to be, at least half the show is about it. And it was wonderful to have Wayne Williams come in because he's obviously in the middle of the story, but had not spoken about it at all, as far as we know, except this morning. He was on another radio station, but I spoke to Wayne about it. So thank him and everybody else. And if you actually have a tip on this, or you know about it or anything, we have a tip line on our website and on the peak.news. You can go on there on the page specifically for this and give us some tips. Well, we have Sean Mulholland, founder of Worship Mob, now Jesus Co., a worship ministry here in Colorado Springs. And as I do in this segment, we open it up, sort of a soapbox. And Sean, of course, wants to talk about what is worship. Sean Mulholland.
Thank you for having me here, Chaim. Yes, what is worship? So I'm going to shoot into my experience of worship, because we've been doing this for about 14 years now at our house for 3 or 4 hours a night, one night a week. And so here are the things that I've been learning about what worship is. The first thing is vulnerability. It's a yielding, a submitting to God. It's coming together with others and yielding to Him. In our case, anyway, it's coming with others. You can, of course, do this by yourself, but Worship Mob is about a group of us coming together and making ourselves vulnerable in God's presence, yielding to Him, yielding to one another. It's also intimacy. It's receiving His love. He loved us first, so how do we practice letting Him love us? Worship is a perfect context for this. It's singing to Him and experiencing Him. Another component of that is adoration. And really it's adoration in gratitude. You know, Father gave us His Son, His only Son, to bridge the gap between us and Him, to bring us into His holy presence. So we adore Him for His holiness, and we adore Him for His goodness. And it's wonderful to have a Father that is revealed through Jesus Christ as being an Abba Father, a daddy is one way of looking at it. A safe, very powerful, but very safe for us to be in His presence. Not an austere king that pushes us away, but that invites us forward. Another component of worship for me is rest, and in that peace. The peace of this world, I should say this, the tempo of the world is very fast. It's on the verge of chaos many times. All of us are expected to do certain things, get certain things done in a day. So when we do worship for 3 or 4 hours on a Friday night, this is a place of encountering the peace of the Lord, resting our minds, opening our hearts, and having a chance to really engage God and slow everything down, and so that the mind can truly rest and the heart can be open. And then at times, as the joy of the Lord comes, we go into some praise. We go into an up-tempo celebration of the greatness, the wonder of who God is and who He is with His Son Christ dying for us. So those are a lot of the things of worship. It's not a musical style. For me, there's certain styles that actually feel like they open my heart more than others. But a lot of times, as I welcome various musicians with different backgrounds, it's very fun to have and to encounter a different style of worship, and then find a part of my heart that actually has been really desiring to love God in that way. So that's a little bit of what is worship for me.
Well, when we come back, we're going to be talking about Worship Mob and how you started this all. But if you were to encourage people to, I don't know, loosen up and be able to get into this, is there any kind of methodology or anything to stop being just such a strict formal Christian and get more into this personal?
Yeah, I'd say it's just about making time. We worship in a living room setting. So let ourselves be at ease and in that place of worship.
So time, especially, giving it the time.
Yeah.
I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. We're here with Sean Mulholland, founder of Worship Mob, Jesus Co., and we'll be right back with the peak after this short national news break. Good? You like it? Okay. Okay, we're on page 4, segment 4.
Yep.
So this is a 12-minute segment, 2 to 3 minutes an answer. I'll do the same kind of pacing.
Of what we did earlier.
Yeah.
And then run through that again.
Yeah, I mean, that one was in some ways a little bit more relaxed. We had a little bit more time. The show's a little tighter, but you'll see.
What do you want me to cut?
No. We cut the questions because we moved those sections out.
Okay.
But I'm just anyway. It's
Keep the pace.
This has a tighter feel than the partners.
Okay.
You know, it's just a little bit tighter.
Okay.
But I'll judge the time.
Okay.
I'll keep you track. But again, if you see me give you a 1 minute or 2 minute budget, that can help you there as we move through it.
It's perfect.
Okay.
You're good at this. It's easy to talk to you.
Okay, excellent. That's why I love helping people tell their story. That's what I'm about. That's why we created the whole citizen journalist thing with the interns, that it's not that people can come in and be part of what they're doing.
Good.
We've actually been, hey,
Morning.
Rich, there you go.
Oh, thank you.
Right here?
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr.
thank
Goldman.
you,
Thank you.
thank you.
I'll be in the booth.
Thank you. He's a new intern a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, it's realizing if we can get, 100 people to, to be storytellers this
Yeah.
region, we would have one of the biggest newsrooms around just to cover our region, and we could actually cover. I mean, again, it's so surprising that this story is not getting covered, but
Yeah.
we knew the other stories won't, and now it becomes like, well, why? Like, why are we not? And so we're speculating, and we're trying to figure out why
Why is it
is there
hush-hush?
no real investigative journalism going on here, and why? Yeah.
Good.
Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer, and today, as every Wednesday, is Faith and Family Wednesday. And this gives us a time to highlight that section of our community. We bring on pastors, ministry leaders, people who work with families, really anything family and faith oriented can end up here on Wednesday. And someone that I've heard a lot about but had never met until today, Sean Mulholland. He's the founder of Worship Mob. You may have heard about that because it's been around for 14 years here in the Springs. It's now Jesus Co., and we'll get into why the name change and what that means. And what they do is it's not based in any specific church, but the Big C church here in our region, to bring people together to worship from cross church, cross denomination, but also their videos have gone out around the world, and we'll get into that, and people are using them around the world in order to lead into worship. So again, Sean Mulholland, thanks so much for being on the Peak.
Thank you, Chaim. Great to be here.
So give us your backstory. How did you come about to found Worship Mob?
Yeah, so my heart has always been one of bringing people together, and from a very young age, I remember something called a hootenanny that my parents would host, which is you'd have 15 to 20 people come over, and you'd sing folk songs, you'd sing worship or gospel songs together. And as a child, that was such a heartwarming time to just feel the power of community coming together to open our hearts. Part of it was worship, but a lot of it was just being present with one another and having a connection with one another in a little community. And then my mother, she was directing a children's choir with 80 kids that were aged 10 to 12 in it. I ended up being a part of that 80-voice children's choir.
You had no choice.
I sure did. I'm the oldest son, and so I remember getting to ride with her to that and feeling like this is really cool, and a lot of my friends are in this. And so that birthed something in my heart where I really wanted to bring people together in a context where we could musically worship and enjoy God together, and then also to produce that and share that with the world.
So there's worship going on, and there's some like 600 churches supposedly in the El Paso County, I guess, region. Haven't documented all of them, but that's a number I hear thrown out a lot. And probably in all of them, if not almost all of them, there's worship going on there on Sundays, on Wednesdays, on other days. So considering how churched this town is, why do we need something like this for just specifically for worship? What do you add to the mix in Worship Mob?
Sure. Yes, I love that we get to worship on Sundays and that we get to worship during the week and other things. The idea that I fell in love with was an extended time. As we worship on Fridays, it's often 3 or 4 hours, and usually, and there might be breaks or people share a testimony or a short word. But really what I found is we do everything in life in segments that are digestible. And I kind of started realizing that even at church, we'd worship our way about 30 minutes in, and that felt to me like a Happy Meal, like a McDonald's Happy Meal of worship. And I was like, I think there's a lot more if we took time and if we did this in a living room, a safe setting where we don't have to be really zealously going out, but we're there with God receiving. And I wanted it to be more like a 5-course meal. And so that the worship takes you through a series of experiences with the Lord, rather than just hitting you hard and then bringing you into a few intimate songs and then moving on to the message. I think both are needed, but the idea was almost a Sabbath-like, or a building into a Sabbath rest with the Lord on Friday nights, which we really loved.
And so, how do you design things, there? I mean, whenever you bring people together, especially, I know, because I don't come from the worship side, but from the teaching side.
Yes.
When you open up the floor
Yeah.
and let the Holy Spirit go, it can sometimes be great. It can, depending on who's there, and you welcome in a lot of people. So how do you put a structure to a Holy Spirit-led event? I mean, and you've been dealing with that every week for 14 years.
Well, and I see that it's caught more than taught, but a lot of this is that I'm a piano player, I'm a keyboard guy, and what I love to do is I love to let people sing out and then to go with them with what they're singing out. And a lot of times, if I know the song, even if I've heard it a couple times, I know I know the chords innately in my head, and I know how to go with them, no matter what key we're in or whatever. So that's really enjoyable for me, to go on a journey where worshipers can go places and I can musically support them, or I kind of look at it like I can be the glue that holds that night together, and then it allows God to inspire things. Many things happen and come out that none of us have ever practiced or heard before, but it's all under a grace and a kind of a context of the intimacy of the safety of the Lord. And so I want to provide that as the steward of the house. And I think that that's really caught by the people that start coming. They start realizing, oh, this is safe, and they're not trying to push something. They're actually trying to flow with the Holy Spirit in this house.
Okay. So tell us about the original name Worship Bob.
Yeah.
Why that when you started back in 2011, I believe it was, and then this transition over to Jesus Co. and what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. Back in 2010, 2011, there were these flash mobs that were happening that we were all seeing on early social media. We were seeing people in a mall or a public place, and they suddenly start dancing in coordination, in sync with each other. And I really liked that idea, and a friend of mine had come up with a company called Change Mob back then, and then I was like, this makes sense in a worship set for the way my heart is set, is how do you bring these people together, and it's a little unorganized, but let's see what happens when we come together, trust the Lord together, and give space for each other. And so I would record those things, and in the early days it was just the worshipers that would come. I'd record them, and then I would mix and produce and share those on YouTube and eventually Spotify and Apple Music. I would actually produce those times together, and then the world would benefit from them as well. And very quickly what you saw was we would do one of our favorite worship songs where we could just feel the presence of the Lord. But at the end of the song, we wouldn't stop. We'd continue with the Holy Spirit. And often those are my favorite recordings, is when the Holy Spirit led us somewhere new that we'd never been, that made sense in the context of the song, but you could see that we were all being available and submitted to God together, and then we could go together where He leads. And I really loved that.
And those videos, because you video these, have gone out around the world. You were
Yes.
telling me about the number of views hits.
Yeah, so we hit 100 million views about a year ago. And we have about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, and then some 50 million across Spotify and Apple Music. So
So you've been able to monetize that, I'm sure, for the ministry.
It's fractional monetization. It's a fraction of a cent per stream, but it has helped. It has helped us just ride out the things.
So changing the. I mean, I'm a brand guy. I'm a marketing guy.
Yes.
Changing the name.
Well,
did God tell you to do this?
Well, we entered kind of a consecration season where we felt like God was leading us towards, hey, learn the priestly ways, learn what does it look like to be like Jesus, and not just receive from Him, but have His heart and have His, some of it, there's been suffering in that too. But what does that look like? And so 3-4 years ago, and I started feeling like the word mob, instead of it being something where we're submitted, it looks a little chaotic. It looks a little like we're going to worship God however we want, and and we're going to do it our way, my way, that thing. And so I started feeling this tug to actually kind of slow that down into a company idea, but not a corporation, but like a collaboration. So the co is not as much as like a corporate saying or incorporated. It is a collaboration, a collective approach, a communal approach to worship. And really what I saw is we're worshiping Jesus. He's the one that died to save us. So we want to worship him, but we want to do it together, and we want to learn how to do that in humility. And so those were some of the underpinnings of that name change.
And now the new website, it's JesusCo, JesusCo.com. So we have about a minute or so left. You mentioned a sabbatical, you're taking a sabbatical, so how can people interact with you at this point until you come off of that?
Sure. We are resting, and we're also rebuilding. We're doing some changes at the house that are very exciting that I'm not going to share yet. But for when we do reopen, that's really exciting. And then in the meantime, you can find Worship Mob and Jesus Co. live worship sessions on YouTube. You can simply search for Worship Mob or Jesus Co. And you can also find them on Spotify and Apple Music. And we have well over 100 hours of worship across those platforms.
And you've told me some churches are using it as their worship music.
Yes, a lot. We get a lot of contact from people in Africa and people in other places where they don't necessarily have much more than a sound system to work with, and they're enjoying both the video and the audio versions of what we've done.
So for people who still want the live experience, though, is there any like offshoot of it, or people that are still getting together that you know?
Well, I'm looking at restarting Closed Doors with some of our dear friends in January and or February, and then reopening to the public a few months after.
Okay,
that.
so don't show up at the house at this point. You'll have
Yes.
to worship on your own to the video. So again, JesusCo.com for more information. Well, that's awesome, and thank you for doing it. And sorry I missed it when it was live, but when it comes back on, we'll see about coming out. Although my family we observe the Sabbath on Friday nights as you do, so we'll see. It might be hard to get us out of the house. We don't want to go after the week, but we'll see it. And actually, when we come back, as Sean has mentioned, the Sabbath, he's a Christian who's been discovering a beauty within the seventh-day Sabbath. And when we come back, he's going to let you know about his personal feelings about that now that he's been doing it and leading worship in that. You're listening to The Peak. I'm the Watchman, and we'll be right back. Cool. Good segment. Okay, I gotta find out how long so we do a rant at the end.
Okay.
Hey, what's the rant? So this is, we have 5 minutes, and just leave a little time for me to wrap up, because I have to thank you and then throw, we don't get music at the end of this one, because I have to throw to a pre-recorded.
Okay, the rant is a pre-recorded?
Yeah, Jim Miller, who ran for mayor,
Okay.
he's regular here. I don't know if you've ever Andy Rooney, 60 Minutes. If you
Oh, yeah.
remember that growing up, okay, he's our
You're Andy.
he's our sort of grumpy, sarcastic guy at the end of the news show to
Right.
add a little humor and lighten it up before we. But he also he's you know, gets to the point of things.
And that's pre-recorded.
Stuff. Yeah, he comes in and does a bank of them, and then
Okay.
we roll it in during we finish the show with it, and then so I'll say goodbye to you at the end of this, and then we have a commercial break, and then I just have a 2-minute close at the end.
Great.
Okay, we're back in 30. So let's see. Okay. So I'll ask first, how did you discover, you know, the Sabbath as opposed to what the Sunday, and then what does it come to not mean to you? What does it come to mean to you?
You're a Lord's Day guy as well, though. Like, do you worship on Sunday and rest on
No,
Sabbath?
we've been in churches and stuff, but you know, we take our day.
My wife grew up
It's hard to
Seventh-day
do
Adventist.
both. Okay, so that helps. What? Oh. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer. We say the quiet stuff out loud here, and as we're finishing up our Faith and Family Wednesday with Sean Mulholland, founder of Worship Mob Jesus Co. When Sean came in, I didn't know this about him, but he has discovered the seventh-day Sabbath as a Christian, and it just, you know, happened. He was having these meetings at his house on Friday night, which is when, if you know, within Judaism, that's understood that the Sabbath is sunset to sun. Any day is sunset to sunset, so the seventh day starts on Friday evening. And so, because I'm always fascinated when Christians come to this, as a Jewish person, it was more natural to me as a believer, as a Messianic Jew. But Sean, how did you come to discover that, you know, biblically the Sabbath is the seventh day, not the first day of the week, as the church has traditionally observed it?
Well, yeah, I actually discovered it many years ago. Of course, it's in the Old Testament to keep the seventh day, the Sabbath, holy. Married my wife; she was Seventh-day Adventist and had been raised that way. But it also kind of seen the argument and how it seemed very odd that the early church changed to a Sunday day of worship. But it also made sense to me that it's okay to worship Jesus on the Lord's Day.
Or any day.
Or any day. But to honor this idea of rest that God invites us into. And for it not to necessarily be the religious underpinnings of rest, but the invitation that, like you said, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So it is a blessing, it's a gift to rest. And what does that rest look like? Because after a day at work, we often come home and want to watch a movie, and we call that rest. But for me, rest, it means turning my brain off. It means being still and loving the Lord and communicating that love to Him and listening to silence and or hoping to hear His voice. I would find that we would worship on Fridays, and that would be a wonderful offering of love and worship to the Lord. And it would also bring me to a point of weariness, but of joyful weariness, where I could actually rest deeply Friday night, and it could actually just practice resting and staying in a place of peace on the Saturday, the Sabbath, following that until 6 p.m. So I've been really leaning into that. It's not always easy, because a lot of times my mind starts going and I start getting an idea, and before I know it, I want to start working on that idea. And a lot of times I go, no, this is a gift that I get to rest. And in that recharge, I am often amazed by Saturday evening and Sunday. I'm getting a whole bunch of new creative ideas and recognizing some things I want to change in how the family works and how we work together and how available we are to one another.
Yeah, it says to guard the Sabbath, and that's because it could be stolen, and generally it's stolen by ourselves, by wanting to get back into that. But more than anything, it's a separation. We're to make that day holy. The other days aren't evil; they're common. And then this set apart day, to really spend with God in a different way and enter, sort of step out of time. So, what has it meant as a family for you, to do this and make this, I mean, not so much a shift for your wife, but to shift, how have you seen it bless your family? Because it is a gift.
Yes, well, one of the big things that has changed is I'm being very conscious of, when you slow down, you're conscious of the people in your life that matter the most. And when you're working day by day, you're a lot of times you're in a place of just overworking and not thinking about them. This gives you a chance to truly rest and truly actually appreciate your family and your loved ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm sure we have a lot more to talk about now. So again, Worship Mob Jesus Co at JesusCo.com. Sean Mulholland of Worship Mob Jesus Co. Thanks so much for being on the Peak and sharing your worship experience with us.
Thank you, Haim.
And now we have Jim Miller, Just a Guy, and the Peak Rants. And what he's talking about today is how to treat students that you may have, your children, who are getting really good grades. Good. It was a good piece.
Great.
Yeah, that was good. It was one of his good ones. Let's let him go. So.
We're all done then, right?
You can go if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, you're off
You
the
have your
show.
clothes.
I just have my clothes, and then
Okay.
and then I'm done. You're welcome to hang out, or if you gotta go, you can go. But
Well, and I'll be excited to turn on 100.7 and hear our earlier one. Right after
yeah, but
this
that
one's-
yeah, when you go out, yes, yeah,
Great.
you can catch that if you get in your car now.
Yeah.
And let people know that show's going out if you.
Yeah. Before that, it's this.
Yeah,
event
4 o'clock
happening.
on 100.7.
Yeah.
You can let people know.
Yeah, that's great.
And let people know about, we don't have our guests, you know what, before you go, let's take a photo.
Yeah.
Hey, Zach, where's he going?
That's the letter X, expressco.com, your one-stop local print shop. There's only two things about the Dad Donut. Think about artificial additives and say hello to a real food ingredient. Come see why everyone is talking about Dad's Donut. Their signature 109-layer donuts, a delightful marriage of a donut and croissant, are meticulously crafted over a 4-day process. With no preservatives, dyes, or additives, their heavenly croissants
Hey, he's gonna take a photo real quick.
Sure.
Here.
Is this for me to take, or you?
Yeah.
Leave
Yeah,
that
take a
one
seat.
there?
Here.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we have about a minute.
All right.
Hey,
Hey,
How's it going?
good.
Put on the headphones if you want.
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1, smile. 3, 2, 1, smile. Awesome.
We're done? We're good? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. You
Good
know,
to be here.
you know Jordan? Baldwin who looked in here? No.
I recognize him.
Okay. He's our main investigative journalist here.
Okay.
Chasing down the Yemi story and everything
Thanks so
else.
much again.
Yeah,
Ryan.
absolutely.
Great to
Thanks.
be here.
Let's
And
talk
I'd love
soon.
to stay connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Zach can send me
We'll
your
get together
contact.
for Shabbat.
Oh, totally.
We'll let you know what we've learned over
Yeah, I'd
the
love to hear that.
decades.
have kids or daughters? They live at home.
Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Peak News. I have a favor to ask you. Tell one person about the Peak News. Let them know that we're on 3 to 4 p.m. Monday through Thursday here on AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer. Let them know that they can check out our podcast, The Peak News, on their favorite podcasting platform, or go on our website, thepeak.news, under podcasts, that we live stream on Facebook and also on YouTube our episodes. Because if we're going to be a news source for the region, if we're going to say the quiet stuff out loud, well, we need people there to listen. And also, some of them, maybe you, will join us here as a citizen journalist. Maybe if you know a young person, or you are a young person, we call them interns if they're young. If they're older, we call them a citizen journalist. That can be a tech. That can be on the reporting side also. We just love having people in media. The more voices, the more people working on bringing media accountability and transparency to our region, the better. Or, you know what we really love is our sponsors, because they help us pay the bills. And, you know, we're looking for more sponsors, those who understand that we need to be saying the quiet stuff out loud, while we're finding that most of the media in town, I don't know what they're doing, but on stories, are they reporting? Are they really investigating? Well, I hope that they do, and I hope that they're inspired by what we do, because we all have a sacred right, sacred responsibility as media in order to do this. So, check out thepeak.news. We're back tomorrow for Media and Education Day. We have Jordan Baldwin, our investigative reporter, back, continuing on this Did Mayor Yemi Know story. And we're going to be talking about the media tomorrow, about how they're handling it or not handling it. And then on Fridays, we take a break, and Dirk Hobbs and the Southern Colorado Business Forum and Digest comes on. Stick around next for the Larry Elder Show coming up here. And check out any of our now 150 podcasts on our website, The Peak. We say the quiet stuff out loud for such a time as this. Shalom.